Good morning to you, JK. And my weekend was okay. I spent a lot of Saturday in studio doing those games in Madagascar. But
Oh yeah,
yeah, the CAR. I think you've done a couple of those games in your time.
yeah.
CAR
I really
games,
enjoyed those.
the World Cup qualifiers. I
Did you do
did.
the Kenya Namibia game?
I did the Kenya Namibia game, and I did
And was that
the.
a surprise for you?
It was a little bit, particularly after the first 10 minutes, because Namibia scored two tries in the first 10 minutes, shunted Kenya off the ball in two scrums, and I thought, oh well, this will be like 35 point game, and then we went off air. We lost picture for about half an hour. And when we
Yeah.
came back, the score was like, 3 point difference or something. It was quite fun because I was commentating with a former Kenyan international, Peter Ochola. And so he was very excited. He was getting phone calls from the Kenyan Harlequins Rugby Club. And so it was quite fun.
Yeah, it's amazing what the turnaround Blades, because my last test that I did was Namibia versus Kenya, and the score was 55-35. And so the exact thing that you're speaking about, being shunted off the ball and being dominated in the pack, that happened in the first game, and it was translated into many try-scoring opportunities because obviously they were on the front foot. So
Yeah,
obviously Kenya's done something different to turn it around, and it's nice to see.
yeah. Interesting. And then Zimbabwe, far too good for. I was actually quite impressed with Madagascar. They're very light at loose forward, and they had one big, heavy, rather corporate. I don't know whether corporate's the right word, but he had a quite a
Rotund.
he had a quite corp he had a big corporation, and but the rest of the guys were, they had a lightweight loose trio, and their locks were, the one lock was quite useful, but really they were not great in the scrums, and Zimbabwe played well and actually gave them a hiding. But I was quite impressed with the way Madagascar just stuck to their guns, and their standard of rugby was not too bad.
Not at all. I mean, they're good. I agree with you. They've got quite a lightweight pack, but they're very skillful players. And if their game is allowed to operate as they would like, they spread the ball around almost like in a French type of way, where it's given a lot of air, and they create many opportunities. It's just how they finish, really.
That's right, yeah, and I say they do have a bit of a problem in the set pieces because they were very much outweighed. Tell
Yeah.
me now. Let's have a chat about the test match on Saturday. What did you think?
Blades, one thing resonated with me from the previous test where we were quite lucky to beat Wales. And that was Heineke's comment that, the team looked tired. He's never seen them so tired. And so he's made some changes in the setup. And obviously the opposition is different. And we really need to take that into account. Everyone's quite bullish about this performance, and certainly it does need to be celebrated. But what I noticed is obviously that the level of enthusiasm and the standard of play was a great deal better than it was last week. There was a lot more coherence in our play, and we looked good. And many of our players actually shone. So from that perspective, I was really pleasantly surprised, and I think what the test has shown is that we do have quite nice depth going into a World Cup year.
Absolutely. I thought that good to see the likes of, excuse me, good to see the likes of, Luat Diacha coming through, and obviously Pollard. But I was very pleased with the performance of Diacha. I know it's not a great Scottish packer forwards, but the youngster getting his opportunity. He's a great advert for. I'm not even sure that he played Craven Week. A great advert for maybe late developers coming
Yeah.
through and earning Springbok colours.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, from the new guys, I refed Andre Pollard when he was at school at Paul Gym, and he was a prodigy. I mean, he was obviously a standout player then, and he could kick the ball a mile. But he has really come through. I've been impressed with his leadership in the under-20 tournament, and obviously he showed in this particular test that he does have the goods. And I think we're perhaps looking at a nice successor to Morné Steyn and Johan Goosen, who I still rate very, very highly. Pat Lambie, we've got a nice set of fly halves now that that can represent our country with a lot of distinction.
Yeah, I do. I'm a little bit loath to. It's great to see Andre Pollard coming on. I always do remember, and I think I spoke about it last week. Cliff Morgan interviewing Tony O'Reilly when Jonathan Davis burst on the scene for Wales, and Cliff Morgan said to Tony O'Reilly, "Don't you think Jonathan Davis is a great player?" And Tony O'Reilly said, "Ask me in 3 years' time."
Yeah, exactly. No, I've said that all along. Someone asked me that the other day, and I said the mark of greatness you don't measure in a game or two or a season or two. You measure it over time. And so we won't know if he's great, but certainly he's competent and he performed well. He can be very proud of his run on debut.
Yeah,
Blades, I'll
agree
tell you
with
who I
you.
was impressed with. And obviously people will be asking question marks because he has had a really troubled time lately. Was Schalk Burger. I thought he had a magnificent game. His work rate was unreal. His ball carry was excellent. He was in the Scottish faces. That nothing deterred him. He was bravery personified, and I thought, he had a fantastic game. Really good. I mean, as much as I'm really proud and happy for Luit and Andre. I really thought Skalkberger put his hand up to be included in the setup going forward.
Yeah, I think it's terrific that also those other guys, Stefan Levies was a name that I threw into the hat a little while ago, and Marnitz Boshoff, and guys, I'm never sure how a person will handle the situation where you become a 5 minute Springbok. And that may be, all the time you get in your life as a 5 minute Springbok. I remember
Yeah,
there was one guy, Leon, oi, can you believe it? He was a Free Stater. Came on against the 1974 Lions, was a 2 minute Springbok on the wing. And that was it. He played for South Africa for 2 minutes. And
that's better than Jan Els, who was supposedly in the Springbok squad, and then when it was leaked, and then um, and then they took him out of the squad, or it was it wasn't true, and he wasn't actually in the squad. So better to be a 2 minute Springbok than have your hopes dashed
no,
the other way.
that's absolutely true. Leon Vogel, it was a lovely guy. I've seen him since. In fact, I saw him a couple of months ago, and a really super guy. Played Free State, and I say was a 2 minute Springbok.
Yeah.
Anyway, there is other rugby on the go. There is Super Rugby. It was Super Rugby during the weekend.
Blades,
Um,
just before we move to Super Rugby, I just while we're on this test, I think there's a lot of people that are thinking that we're that's a tremendous win, and like I said, it is to be celebrated, but there are some holes in our game that we do need to address before the championship and going forward into the World Cup, because we play teams like New Zealand, England, and a very good French scrummaging outfit. We're going to battle, and we really do need to sort out our scrum and our backups to the Yanni du Plessis of the world. There does need to be an effort to find the right type of player. And as much value as a bloke like Kuni Oosthuizen does add around the park, and he does. I mean, his steal is great, his carry is fantastic, his D is great, but I think in the scrum he can be quite vulnerable, and so we do need to sort that front row out, and perhaps sort the whole pack out when we do have these 15 to 20 scrums every game. A scrum penalty is one of the worst penalties to give away, and if teams sense weakness and are able to capitalize, there's almost nothing you can do. The rest of the game is pretty dynamic, and you can manufacture a result. at scrum, you're pretty isolated. The player that's taking strain, it's the same setup every single time. So he has to find a way around it. And like I say, if you've got someone that looks vulnerable or that is going to be vulnerable against some of these stronger packs, then obviously, they need to take a good look at that equation. Because like I said, those penalties, they're very difficult to mask.
Yeah, okay, I would agree with that. But
Okay, so
who was
moving,
that
yeah,
guy
carry
from
on.
the Lions that you said was, in your opinion, the best tight head in the country?
I just his name starts with an E, and I keep
Yeah,
forgetting it.
yeah. Okay, we'll come back to that.
Yeah,
But
um, I rate him highly, and I think he's a fantastic scrummager. I'm not sure, how they measure whether someone should be in the setup or not, but I would say as a scrummager, I think he has no peer in South Africa, and so I'd really like to see him get a shot, in the next. He's got good school pedigree. I believe he played for Monash, and he's obviously played for the Lions now for a while. And the Lions, like you correctly said a couple of weeks ago, Blades, they've got a great scrum completion percentage, and they give away very little at scrum. And I think it's due to the fact that they put a lot of effort in. And perhaps this tight head needs to get a lot more credit than he does. So I'd love to see him included in either the upcoming championship or perhaps as a backup on the November tour.
yeah, it will be interesting to see whether the Springbok Brains Trust, have the same thoughts as you. Tace Brits says he agrees with you that Skalk was the man. Who was the man of the match? I had to go
Probably,
out.
I'd say probably Lewitt, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't Lurt. It
Oh,
was J.P. Peterson. Maz
well,
tells me the man of the match was J.P. Peterson,
oh,
which surprises me a little bit.
me too.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I would never have gone. I'm not that I've got anything against J.P. Peterson. Maybe we missed what he had done on defence, because I do know Hanneke Meyer. I was talking earlier about one of the rugby websites was saying that Hanneke Meyer was particularly pleased with our defensive effort. And before I saw that, in fact, yesterday at a lunch, I said to my mates, I said, the one thing that I thought was great of the South Africans was that how quickly they shut the Scottish players down.
Yeah, that's what I said. Blades, it did look good, and that's why you've got to give the coaching staff some credit. They rung the changes. They chose players who looked perhaps fresher at practice. Our players have been going for 3 months, and some of them haven't had a proper rest. And it was just good to see, these players, these backup players, putting their hands up and saying, "Look, I want to be at the World Cup, and I want to have a future in South African rugby." It was really good. And
Yeah.
we should. You still one of my big things about the Springboks versus the All Blacks is that the All Blacks, if they are superior, they'll often stick teams away. And they'll score the 40, 50, 60. Often South Africa look better than the opposition, but they're not able to capitalize and run away with it. And that's why I thought this particular game, and we don't know how good the Scottish team is because they're a very, very young outfit, and they almost lost to Canada, and they nearly lost to Argentina as well. But the reality is that we looked good. We looked, and this is a top 10 country. So we must give credit where it's due.
Yeah. Okay. We've got a nice tweet in from Viv Pike. Viv Pike's one of our big contributors. Busy with Ref JK's Call It Like It Is. Enthralled. Awesome read, which is very nice for you, JK.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
I actually went to I did the roadshow Durban, Cape Town, PE last week, and I obviously have to talk a little bit and highlight some of the stories that are in the book and perhaps some of them that aren't. But I was very impressed with Port Elizabeth and the way that they hosted this breakfast just before the test. We spoke for an hour and a half. It could have gone on for 3 hours, but unfortunately, some people had to go to work, and but they sold all the books that were available there, and just shows that the smaller centers have a lot of interest as well. And I really, really enjoyed promoting it there.
Yeah, that's great. Fantastic. I see Leon Petzer again. Mr. Blades, how is it possible for JP to win the man of the match ahead of Lut or Lut Diacha or anyone else for that matter? Leon, I don't know. I, for many a year, have said that I'm very anti man of the match because everybody is doing a totally different or performing a totally different role in the game. I think, you might have got a situation where we had our situation where one person stands out head and shoulders above the rest. And no names, no pactrol. Our Springbok fullback, of course, in the one test, stood out head and shoulders, I think. But there is a situation where I'm very anti-man of the match because it's just a commercial thing. And the man of the match quite often now is chosen by the panel who are in studio in Randburg. So there you are, Leon. It's an opinion thing. And I think it certainly during Super Rugby, when I was commentating Super Rugby matches, in the old days, the commentators used to decide on the man of the match, and then they changed it to the panel in the studio who are decide on the man of the match. So, it was Willie Leroux was man of the match in Nelspruit, and I think probably deserved to be so because he did dominate the game. What do you think, JK?
Yeah, I think in that particular game, Blades, I think it was like a standout performance. So, you could have been anybody. It would, that Willie Leroux stood out last week, and he probably won it just on the back of his first half showing. I don't really pay too much attention to man of the match. I've been involved in this Varsity Cup setup with UCT, and the players, as much as it's good for the ego of the individual who walks up and gets it, they're not really that interested.
I agree with you.
It's not actually that important at all. What is important is whether they fulfilled their function, whether they were able to contribute, whether they added X factor, whether they went outside of their mandate to perform. All these things are much more important than winning a man of the match. So, that is like you correctly said, is just a commercial gimmick.
Yeah. Quite interesting, though. The public do get involved in that. And anyway, that's the situation. That's how man of the match works. And we both agree that, we not that sort of worried about it too much. I have a little axe to grind with Lawrence van der Merwe, and you maybe can explain something. On screen on Saturday, the field in Madagascar was marked both for rugby and soccer, and they hadn't really taken the soccer markings out. And when you're doing it off screen, it's very difficult. And Namibia particularly were attacking, and they were attacked by a maul situation, and then perhaps it would develop into a ruck situation. And then Lawrence van der Merwe would blow his whistle and indicate a penalty. In other words, his arm went up indicating a penalty for Madagascar. That happened on 3 occasions where I was duped into saying, oh no, Zimbabwe have either held on or they've gone over the ball or something. Penalty Madagascar. And in fact, he had blown a try for Zimbabwe.
Oh. Was the arm facing the wrong way?
The arm was facing 3 times. The arm was facing as if it was a penalty for Madagascar. And I've seen other referees do it.
Yes, I agree with you, and it's to do with housekeeping, Blades. What they do is when they get into that zone, the more comfortable arm shoots up, and really what they should do is twist their body into a position where they can give the audience an accurate picture of what's going on. But what they do is they just stick their hand up in the format of a penalty without facing the right way, and so I do agree with you. I've seen others do it, and I didn't see this particular incident, but I do think it's, it's not a problem, but it is housekeeping, and
it's not a major problem. It just
yeah,
threw me as a commentator when you're doing it off screen.
yes.
You haven't got the picture wasn't the greatest, and so it was just a little disconcerting, and I just thought I'd get your view on it.
Yeah, the Blades. By the way, I think it's embarrassing that we didn't pick up the name of the tight end. So I've just Googled it while we were talking, and the bloke's name is Julian Riedlinghuis.
Yeah, right.
So,
And you're
so
quite right, a
yeah, for
Mona's
anyone
guy.
out there, we keep punting his name, Julian Riedlinghuis. I think he's fantastic. I think he needs to get into the setup as quickly as possible. Otherwise, he's going to get snapped up by one of these French outfits. And I'd hate to see a bloke with that type of talent, leave our country. So I really think that he deserves a go.
Yeah, great. I see that Andy Ellis is now going to Japan, and the website article said that Andy Ellis joins the exodus of New Zealand players going to play in Japan. It'll be interesting to see whether anybody does see that they're talking about the Japanese and the Australians in particular coming out to the Coca-Cola Craven Week. So it'll be interesting to see. We just have to handle Dirk Snoek Henkemans. Dirk, thanks for your interest. J.P. Peterson had an amazing finish for his try and set up Mvovo's try and was amazing on defense. Why are people questioning it? Okay, Dirk, that's fine. Your opinion is appreciated. And now, Liana McCauley, everybody now, you see, JK, we say we don't, there's not such a great importance in man of the match. We've got Willem Dupree saying Skalk or Loert. We've got Duncan Bettridge saying, hi, Mr. Blades and JK. For me, the man of the match, and thought it would be Marcel or Loert. I was dump struck. Missed the B there. And then Liana, I love it when we get tweets from ladies. Liana McCauley says, yeah, definitely Skalk or Loert. So you can see in the matter of 3 or 4 minutes, we've had 5, 6, 7, and Duncan Bridges and Marcel was all over the field. So we've had 7, 8 tweets just about man of the match. So obviously the public are quite caught up in it.
Yeah, and that's why it's there, Blades. It's a commercial gimmick for the public to watch the game and for them to make their own mind up, and then see if it coincides with what these so-called experts think. And I thought Loert was very good, and I thought JP was excellent, and I do agree that Marcel Coetzee is a workhorse of note, and he's got such passion for for our Springbok jersey, which is lovely to see. But I know what Skalk's been through, and I think if you just look at his contributions, I mean, he had something like 20 tackles and 13 carries. That's excluding all the extra work that he did in and around the breakdown. I just thought he was phenomenal, and I'm looking forward already to what's coming up in a year's time. So for me, it's not so much just the game; it's about where do I see these people fitting in down the track. And I thought Schalk put his hand up.
Yeah, great. And the referee had a good game?
Yep, I'm a big fan of Glenn Jackson, and I'd love to see actually Blades more players, ex-players, trying their hand at refereeing. We've got a lot of couch potatoes in the world, and we've obviously we've got a rich rugby tradition in South Africa. We've got a dwindling number of referees for a variety of reasons. And it just would be nice if some of the ex-players, probably difficult for locks and props to do it, but certainly the smaller guys who are finishing their careers to see if they can transition. And Glenn Jackson has been one of those success stories of a player who actually did have a full career. He played about 6 seasons for the Chiefs.
And he was an All Black.
Was a Maori, I think. May not have got to an All Black, but he played for about 8 seasons with Neil de Kock at Saracens, and so he had a very long and full career. And then he transitioned very well, and he does make mistakes. He can be a bit loose, but what I really like about him, Blades, is that he has got a great feel for the game. Number one, and number two, he's got a brilliant rapport with the players. So when he does make a mistake, they're not as anti the decision making, because there's a greater degree of understanding that he was a part of the rugby at the highest level.
I think the other thing is, and this is quite a contentious matter, JK, is that I think that he was fast tracked.
Yes, he was.
And I know, you talk about former players and we need more referees and that sort of thing. And I do know in the case of Uli Schmidt was uh, signed up with the Northern Transvaal Referees Association. And I mean, this isn't a Heinz hearsay or anything. This is what Uli told me. That Uli was then assigned to a fourth league game, and he said it was an absolute shambles. So he started telling the front rankers how to scrum and that sort of thing, and got severely reprimanded by his adjudicator for teaching the guys how to scrum and not just blowing the game. And they kept giving Uli and saying, "You and you boy carry the chairs here," and blah blah blah. And eventually Uli actually just chucked it in.
Yeah, and Blades, I've spoken about that in my book as well. There's some parts of our rugby that are still quite archaic, and some referee societies that are they're still they're not functional as if they were corporate entities, they would be dead. So they need to wake up and try and encourage the youth of today to participate. In addition to that, there are still some environments around South Africa which are not safe for match officials. So when a guy thinks to himself, what's he going to do on a Saturday afternoon? That's not one of them. And I can quite understand a player of Uli's experience and intellect, not wanting to hang around and listen to this nonsense.
Yeah, it was
So
sad.
yeah, it is sad. It is sad because here's a guy that was prepared to contribute, and now his time is gone. He's not going to be able to do it now. So you have to grasp the nettle, and you have to be able to, when one of these players shows an interest, uh, to be able to do it in a more coherent manner than it's being done at the moment.
Yeah. As you well know, I do have your book, and but I'm busy reading The Kings of Swing at the moment. So I look forward to reading your book.
Okay.
Have you had threats and your tires slashed, and as some referees have had?
No, Blades. I think I was very lucky like that. I refereed in a lot of different environments where perhaps um, some of it was quite challenging, I must say, and I've mentioned a couple of stories there. But I think it's improved, but I think it can improve a hell of a lot more. We still see referees being assaulted, and it's not confined to one area of the country. It happens all around the country,
It
and
is
like I
appalling,
said,
absolutely appalling.
yeah. And
Yeah.
when blokes think like, okay, so it never happened to me, but I totally sympathize with any individual, because just, we always say the game of rugby is not worth it if we can't ensure player safety. Well, the game of rugby is not worth it if we can't ensure match official safety. It's exactly the same scenario. And I just,
Absolutely.
somewhere along the line, there has to be standards that clubs need to uphold and need to be responsible for. And it is a difficult and vexing issue. Sometimes they don't want to accept responsibility and they blame it on the opposition supporters, etc., etc. But we don't want to head down the road where our referee supplies are just ever dwindling. And I'm 47 now. I'm still sometimes required to take two games on a Saturday morning and afternoon in the Western Cape. I mean, that clearly is not a situation which is something we should be happy with. And like I said, one of the main reasons is because guys have got better things to do on a Saturday afternoon than be threatened.
Tell me, do schoolmasters still referee?
They do,
They
and
do, huh?
they do, but not enough of them. Not
Yeah.
enough of them, and it is quite difficult for a schoolmaster because obviously he's got an attachment to the school, and I don't care what they say. Subconsciously it must be a difficult task when you're coaching a school. You've been there for sort of 10 years or 15 years, and you're required to be completely objective. that is a difficult job. But with all the shortage of manpower, we do rely quite heavily on these individuals.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we're moving in now to Super 12 rugby, Super 12, Super 15. In fact,
Yes,
it's not called Super 15, it's just called Super
Super
Rugby.
Rugby, Super
Yeah,
Rugby, that's it.
Super Rugby, and we've got some interesting matchups coming up.
Yeah.
The
Blades, I'll just
Sharks.
talk about this past weekend. I mean, we never had any of our own teams involved, but there were some interesting games. Did you watch some of them?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so
Yeah,
I watched most of them, and we had some. Why I say interesting is because the New Zealand conference is shaping up to be quite tight, and whereas the Sharks look dominant, and I think the Waratahs will come home as I said they would in the beginning of the year. I think the New Zealand one is still up for grabs, and so there were some interesting matchups. I particularly enjoyed the Canes Crusaders game and the Highlanders Chiefs game in particular. It was very well refereed by Gareth Williamson, who is he is one of the journeymen of the squad, but he always boxes above his weight and very neat and tidy and referees a good fixture. And I thought he did a really good job with this game, the Highlanders Chiefs, in the balance right till the end. And it was actually a very nice game of rugby to watch. So obviously we had the two home teams coming through, the Canes over the Crusaders and the Highlanders over the Chiefs. And then we moved across to Australia. And as I said before, um, that the Waratahs for me are a dominant outfit. And unfortunately, they picked up quite a serious injury to the captain, Dave Dennis, and that may or may not affect their product
run
going
into
forward.
the end. Yeah,
Yeah, because he is quite a significant contributor in that setup. But they do play a brand of rugby which I've been particularly impressed with. I said they would, beat the Brumbies and beat them quite comfortably, which they did. But I'll tell you, Blades, I mean, I've been quick to say that Williamson had a good game. I didn't think Walsh had a good game at all. And why I say that, and this is very, very important in the context of these bigger games, is that um, when referees continually warn and then warn and then warn and then warn again, what it does is it changes the shape of the game, so
yeah,
that players then know that they can push the referee further and further, and the sanction is not going to be appropriate. And what happened in this game is, even though the Tars won quite comfortably, the Brumbies must have been warned about 6 times in the game. This is the last time. This is the last time. This is from a very experienced referee. It looked to me like he was trying to curry favor with the Brumbies and not upset them. And I thought that was, I don't think that that's a good look for our referee group. And as it turned out, there won't be too many complaints because the Waratahs ended up getting the bonus point win. But there was a stage in the game where referee inaccuracy, and not so much because of the decisions that he made, but it's the upgrading of decisions to appropriate sanction, which will discourage negative play and defensive play and encourage teams to use the ball correctly. So
okay, right, yeah,
that's my little spray for the day.
okay,
We had the Rebels and Reds, and the Reds, well, they certainly surprised me. But, as I said before, they've been pretty unlucky this year in the comp, and they've got a game coming up against the Waratahs at home, which is always quite a special game. Those Australian derby games can be quite dull at times, but that particular game between the Reds and the Waratahs has often got a little bit of extra spice. So I'm looking forward to that in a couple of weeks' time. And then Blades, obviously, I mean, if you looked at I mean, this is one of the best demolition jobs that we've seen in this year's competition. I mean, the Blues went to Perth as underdogs, as rank underdogs to come home, and they blitzed the Force. I mean, I've never seen such a comprehensive smashing of a team that had aspirations of getting through to the playoffs. And in 18 minutes, they had their bonus point win. It was quite a phenomenal performance, and it wasn't just capitalizing on bad errors or weak defense. They actually played quite well, and it just shows that what I've been saying all along, that if this Blues team actually clicks and their decision makers can function effectively, they can actually trouble even the best in the competition.
Yeah, well, they have been so incredibly unpredictable, and you're quite right. They have, the game breakers plenty in their side. JK, we've run out of time because
Cool, man.
if we go way over our time, some of these shows are syndicated, and then our poor production people have to do a huge amount of editing. So we are over time, and thanks for being with us again on this Monday morning. We hope you listeners and tweeters, obviously from all the tweets we've had, have enjoyed the contribution of the most capped referee in the history of world rugby. JK.
Unbelievable.
Thanks, JK. Have a great
you,
week.
guys.
Cheers. Bye. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Balls.co.za